Hello, this is Daniel, and I'm trying to go electric. Today has turned out to be somewhat of a pisser kind of day in my new electric lifestyle. I had charged my car yesterday to 89%, and then it was cold and snowed just a little bit in Jackson, Wyoming. And so I think the battery was down a couple percentage points this morning, not a big deal. My goal today was to drive from Jackson up through Grand Teton National Park into the southern gate of Yellowstone, then up to West Yellowstone to supercharge there and head into Montana. All great. Wyoming Department of Transportation site showed no road closures. I get up to the south gate of Yellowstone and there's a truck with some rangers turning traffic around. Pisser. So I had enough electricity to get back to Jackson, not a big deal, or at least I could if I wanted to do that. A little irritated, I had to turn around. I get back to the gate at Grand Teton and the ranger's like, oh yeah, they just opened everything up. And I look on the website and it's open as it was when I looked early this morning. So now I'm kind of faced with I have 128 miles to get from here to West Yellowstone. My mileage reading, because I had to backtrack, is now saying I've only got about 123 to 147 miles in the tank and I'm at 43%. Ranger at the Grand Teton gate said, oh hey, go to Signal Lodge, they've got a charger there. I go there, of course the lodge is closed because of COVID, but I go inside anyways and ask them if I can use their charger, and it turns out their charger has been shut off because of construction and it's surrounded by trucks and it's DOA. So I figured I would slow charge and maybe get another 40 miles and try to make it up to West Yellowstone, but it's not going to happen. So a couple lessons. Tesla, if you're listening, can you please somehow get superchargers inside these national parks? There are gas stations. There's got to be a way. Yeah, it's just not going to work. So, I've spent the last 4 hours now, I guess, driving around, and I'm going to have to go back to Jackson, supercharge for, 40 minutes, 50 minutes, and then get on the road, and today's a giant wash. Still love my car, but long distance driving, it's risky. And when you go into these rural parts and national parks and whatever, be prepared for the worst. Plan on it happening that it might not work out for you. I don't know. I just think it's too risky for me to come in with 10 miles in the tank if I'm lucky. What if I go up a hill? What if there's another detour? So anyways, that's where I am. I'm going to cancel my Yellowstone plans and go back to Jackson and take the long route. Kind of crappy, but here we are. Hello, this is Daniel, and I'm trying to go electric. Have a little cup of coffee here. It's a balmy 23 degrees, 22 degrees outside right now. I am in West Yellowstone, Montana, just supercharged up to 90%. As you probably saw in my previous video, I was unable to go to Yellowstone today, which is a bit of a bummer. Just didn't have the range and didn't have the information from the park. And I missed the road entry by 5 minutes after I was turned around, and then there was no cell signal, and I couldn't figure out road conditions. And Wyoming State Department of Transportation didn't have the same information that the Rangers had and all the rest of it. So today I would say it was just a big misfortune. And I've pretty much wasted most of the day. What are you going to do? It sucks. So I am on my way to Big Timber, and looks like it's about 147 miles away. I had two options to get in. One was going to be to go through the park here at West Yellowstone, and then the other is going to go kind of west of the park up Idaho into Montana, and then through Bozeman, and then on the highway over. Really, really, really wanted to go through the park today, even if it was at sundown, but it's 22 degrees outside, and as you can tell, there's snow around, and while I'm not afraid to drive in snow, and the roads are typically pretty good, coming into West Yellowstone on the circuitous route through Idaho this afternoon, once I charged up in Jackson, the roads were getting pretty icy. And, the last thing I need is at sundown to be driving through Yellowstone over some mountain peaks or whatever. I don't know what the road is like from West Yellowstone. I went to Yellowstone like 22 years ago coming in from the north, but I don't remember what the west gate looks like. So I don't know. I don't need to be going on any crazy roads tonight. It's unfortunate, but I figured I'll just take the main highway up to Bozeman and then across to Big Timber. So a couple lessons from today. A couple pro tips of traveling while going electric. Number one, it's true, there are not a lot of superchargers in the most beautiful parts of this country, which is kind of odd. The cars that use the least amount of carbon energy to power themselves, giant asterisk on that statement, um, based on how the electricity is generated in Wyoming and whether they're buying credits for clean energy elsewhere, whatever the deal is. I saw windmills around, so I know they're producing some clean energy. The crazy thing is that the cleanest cars are actually the least likely to be able to travel in these areas. Hope that gets fixed one day in the not distant future, especially as more and more people buy electric cars. Pro tip number two, don't trust any of the Department of Transportation websites or even the Yellowstone website or anything. Just assume that it's just not going to work out. Assume you're going to be thrown some curveball. You're going to have to backtrack. You're going to have to go back to some supercharger. At least it could happen. And in my case today, it did happen. And ultimately, I chose it because I was just at the edge where I didn't have enough range. It would have been super risky to try to get to West Yellowstone with just miles left in the battery. I couldn't bring myself to do it. Another pro tip, what are we on, number 3 now? When you get into a ranger station or a park entrance, do look at everything that's on the window next to that park ranger. Because when I came back from the south gate of Yellowstone back to Grand Teton, and I kind of circled around, just mentioned to the park ranger, I was like, hey, the gate's closed. You might want to let people know as they're coming in that the gate's closed. That's when the woman did say that the park had opened up again. That's where I learned about it. And then she also pointed to some little sign in their window that said road closures. I don't remember seeing that when I went in the first time. And, I guess it's kind of a CYA for them and a nice courtesy. They didn't have to do it. It was Grand Teton after all, not Yellowstone. But do look at the 1,000 little things they have in their window, because one of them might actually tell you that you can't go where you want to go. Number 4, what are we, 4 or 5 now? I guess call ahead. The problem with Yellowstone and these national parks is there's no one to call. You get a general number, and that number told me that there were no closures, but there were, and then I came back and there weren't. The other pro tip, where you might think that there's a slow charger somewhere in a park, don't expect it to be there. As I mentioned in my previous video, I drove out to a lodge and the charger just did not exist. The other pro tip, this whole business that you see online about like, don't charge your Tesla over 80% unless you want the battery to freak out. I'm seeing other things where people are like, look, if you're traveling, just charge up to 90 or I don't know, 100%. Saw some pretty insightful video yesterday from some guy who apparently is some engineer, worked on Teslas or something like that, where he said the battery does want to be in a steady state at 50%, but obviously if you're traveling heavily, that's not possible. And he said that for day-to-day travel, you really should keep it down to where Tesla's trying to tell you to keep it down. If that means like 55%, because you're only going to travel for 20 miles that day, trying to keep your battery at that range apparently is the ideal. But in a case like mine, I guess I can use 100% of the battery. Now, I did leave Jackson today, I think with like 87 or 86%. I can't remember. I think I mentioned in my previous video. The car does use a little bit of energy on these cold days. So even though I had charged to 89, 90 last night, a couple percent were off. Not a big deal. Now, if I had been up to 95 or 100, I'm telling myself, as far as I can observe, I'm only getting like 20 miles per 10% charge, which if I'm up at 100%, that has me at 200 miles for a car that's listed at like 326 miles last I checked their website. I mean, that's a full third off. Uh, Not that crazy impressive. Uh, so I don't know. If I had had 200 miles in the car and to get to my destination, even with that backtrack, still I had to eat up like 80 miles doing that round trip. If I had gone back all the way up, it still would have been pretty risky. I don't know. Maybe if I had another 20 miles in the car, I would have tried. But um, how could I mean, that just didn't happen that way. So if you're buying an electric car and if you're buying a Tesla, expect the craziness in terms of road anxiety to happen, and especially in some of the greatest places in the country. I don't know what to tell you. I guess just be open to the possibility that things are going to go way slower or not happen at all. Call, look at the websites, do what you got to do, and make it happen. And if it doesn't happen, have a backup plan and be cool with it. You know, the upshot is I get to drive through a nice part of Idaho on my way back up to Montana. I'm not going to shake a stick at that. It's some cute little towns. Way up. Obviously would have preferred Yellowstone. I hadn't seen it for 22 years, and it's probably going to be another 22 more at this rate. But there's that. Another thing, when I realized I wasn't going to go to Yellowstone this afternoon, before I thought maybe I could come in late this afternoon by evening time, and then I just canceled that whole plan. I thought maybe this is happening for a reason. Maybe I can drive through Wyoming and go up to Devil's Tower National Monument, which, as far as I recall, is in northeastern Wyoming. Well, that's not happening because why? There's not a supercharger in that part of the state within like 100,000 miles. So I had to put the kibosh on that dream. I went there 22 years ago. I actually did a big trip with a friend of mine 22 years ago, and we saw a lot of this stuff. And I would love to go back because I just think that place is so fascinating. But not an option for an electric car. Like if you look at the Wyoming supercharger map, there's a giant black hole. Oh, I guess the camera's right there. Giant black hole where there are no superchargers. And that giant volcanic tower is in one of those holes. So, going up through Bozeman, gonna go up to Big Timber, and hopefully the roads don't get too crazy. Man, the roads look dry here. There is snow around. I think the bigger deal is, I mean, there's like a quarter inch of snow where I am right now. Maybe if I go up in some hills, it'll be a couple inches, maybe 5. But the roads look clean. The bigger issue is just that it's getting really cold. And driving in, when it was icy, I mean, this is still a cool car. It's a Tesla. It's got all-wheel drive. It's got all these fancy electronics. But they're not going to overcome ice, I'll tell you that. And when I was kind of coming in, I was like, oof, all right, I feel it, right? This car is not beyond the laws of physics. And certainly had autopilot off at that point because I was fighting autopilot a little bit coming up here. Speed limit signs were getting all wrong, and it was just making some weird lane decisions. And granted, I'm not on a super highway in this part of the country. It's like one lane each direction, and then some turn lanes and some passing lanes, and chain up, pull outs, and whatnot. That definitely gave autopilot a run for its money. So kudos to Tesla for creating a technology that can make it most of the way. But autopilot in this part of the country certainly, looks like the camera's getting crooked, certainly needed me to take over. So that's all I've got from today. Range anxiety, justified. Lack of battery capacity, I guess it is what it is. Lack of information, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Oh, it looks like it's going really dark. At least you can see the sunset out the roof. That's pretty. Stay tuned, and I will report more. It's supposed to get really cold early tomorrow morning, about 1%, so that's probably going to take some energy off my car. I'm staying where there's a supercharger, so it kind of doesn't really matter that much. And then there's supposed to be a snowstorm coming in, I guess, tomorrow as well. And I'm planning on going up through North Dakota and northern Minnesota out to Duluth by Sunday night. This car's gonna show what it's got. This whole all-wheel drive business, this reduction in battery capacity because of cold weather, all that stuff, I'm gonna be in the thick of it. So come along for the ride, enjoy the snow, enjoy the ice, enjoy the reduced battery capacity, enjoy the mix-ups, enjoy the lack of proper information, and enjoy watching me trying to figure it all out. Stay out of trouble. Take care.